At my wedding reception, just as I thought the day had gone perfectly, my Aunt Sandra shattered the moment with a dramatic outburst. She suddenly stood up, her voice cutting through the joyful chatter like a knife. "This marriage is a joke. He should have married my daughter." The entire room fell into stunned silence. My stomach lurched, and I felt the weight of every guest's eyes shifting between her, my husband Mark, and me. My mother's face turned a furious shade of red, my father clenched his fists, and my cousin Lisa, Sandra's daughter, sat beside her, feigning embarrassment while secretly basking in the attention. But Mark. He didn't flinch. He didn't stammer or look uncomfortable. Instead, he simply smiled, calm, confident, and almost amused. Then, with a smirk that sent a shiver down my spine, he met Sandra's furious gaze and said, "Then you're really going to love what's next." Gasps rippled through the crowd as the wedding planner, who had been standing discreetly nearby, suddenly stepped forward with a microphone. She cleared her throat and, in a composed voice, announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue, we have a special presentation from the groom." Confused murmurs spread among the guests as the lights dimmed, and a projector screen descended. My heart pounded. This wasn't part of the plan. I turned to Mark, searching for answers, but the determination in his eyes told me to wait. Then, the video began to play. The first clip showed a recording of Sandra on a phone call, laughing. "I don't care how it happens. I just want her humiliated. If Lisa can't have him, then no one can." The room erupted in shocked whispers. I felt my blood turn to ice. The video continued, revealing a string of incriminating evidence, recordings, screenshots of texts, emails, and voicemails. Sandra had been busy. She had attempted to cancel my wedding dress order, bribed the florist to ruin my bouquet, and even impersonated me to change the wedding date. The final and most appalling revelation: she had offered Mark $50,000 to leave me at the altar in front of everyone. Chaos broke loose. My mother trembled with rage, my father looked like he was seconds away from physically throwing Sandra out, and as for Sandra herself, her face had drained of all color. Lisa, who had sat beside her, now appeared equally horrified. But Mark wasn't finished. He turned to Lisa and, in a voice laced with quiet satisfaction, said, "Oh, don't worry, Lisa. You're in the next part." Another clip played. This time, it was a screen recording of Lisa's desperate messages to Mark. "Lisa, I know you still think about me. We were meant to be. Lisa, leave her. Come to me. I'll make it worth your while. Lisa, don't marry her. You'll regret it." The final blow came in the form of a recorded phone call, Lisa's voice trembling, choked with resentment. "She doesn't deserve you. I should be the one in that dress. If you don't leave her, I'll make sure she never has a happy marriage. I'll ruin her." Silence. Complete, deafening silence. Lisa's fiancé, who had been sitting stiffly through it all, now stood without a word, turned on his heel, and walked out. Sandra stammered, trying to salvage the disaster unraveling before her eyes, but my father, his voice ringing with finality, pointed at the door. "Get out." For the first time in her life, Sandra hesitated. But the humiliation was too overwhelming. And just like that, she and Lisa were escorted out of my wedding, their disgrace complete. But the reckoning wasn't over yet. The next morning, I woke up to an explosion of notifications. My phone buzzed relentlessly, texts, missed calls, and an endless stream of social media alerts. Sandra had taken to Facebook in a dramatic, desperate attempt to spin the narrative in her favor. "I can't believe my own family betrayed me after everything I've done for them. My niece is a manipulative, backstabbing snake who stole my daughter's future. That wedding was a sham. Mark doesn't love her, he's being tricked. Everyone knows Lisa was his true love. Money and lies won in the end. They humiliated us, but karma is coming for them." If Sandra had expected sympathy, she had miscalculated. The comments section was brutal. Family, friends, even acquaintances tore into her without hesitation. "You tried to ruin your own niece's wedding. You're an embarrassment, Sandra. Maybe if you raised your daughter with some dignity, she wouldn't be throwing herself at a married man." Karma. You just got served a 5-course meal of it. And then, my favorite comment of all, one from my own mother. Everything you've ever done in secret is now in the open. You did this to yourself. Sandra and Lisa had tried to ruin my wedding. Instead, they had destroyed themselves. At my wedding reception, just as the evening seemed to be unfolding like a perfect dream, the moment was shattered by a voice filled with rage and entitlement. From across the room, my Aunt Sandra suddenly stood up, her wine glass clutched so tightly I thought it might break. The laughter and joyful chatter died instantly as she raised her voice for everyone to hear. This marriage is a joke. He should have married my daughter. A heavy silence fell over the room. My stomach twisted into knots as I felt the weight of every pair of eyes turning toward us. My mother's face burned with fury, my father's jaw clenched in barely restrained anger, and Lisa, Sandra's ever-entitled daughter, sat beside her, pretending to be mortified but failing to hide the glint of satisfaction in her eyes. And then there was Mark. My husband didn't flinch. He didn't look uncomfortable or caught off guard. Instead, he simply smiled, a slow, knowing smirk that sent a ripple of unease through the crowd. With a steady voice, he met Sandra's livid gaze and said, "Then you're really going to love what's next." A murmur spread through the guests, whispers of confusion and anticipation filling the space. The wedding planner, who had been standing quietly in the background, stepped forward and lifted a microphone to her lips. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue, we have a special presentation from the groom." I blinked in surprise. This wasn't part of the evening's itinerary. I turned to Mark, searching for an answer, but the look in his eyes told me everything. I needed to wait. The lights dimmed, and a projector screen unfurled from the ceiling. The air in the room became electric with anticipation. Then, the video began to play. The first clip sent a shockwave through the crowd, a recording of Sandra on a phone call, her voice dripping with malice and laughter. "I don't care how it happens. I just want her humiliated. If Lisa can't have him, then no one can." Gasps filled the air. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. The video continued, revealing an appalling collection of evidence: recorded calls, screenshots of texts, emails, voicemails. Sandra had been busy. She had attempted to cancel my wedding dress order, bribed the florist to sabotage my bouquet, and even impersonated me over the phone to change the wedding date. But the final revelation was the most horrifying. She had offered Mark $50,000 to leave me at the altar in front of everyone. The room exploded in disbelief. My mother trembled with barely contained fury. My father looked like he was moments away from throwing Sandra out himself. And Sandra, her face had drained of all color, her lips parted in shock, unable to comprehend that all her scheming had just been laid bare. Lisa, who had been sitting stiffly beside her mother, looked just as horrified. But Mark wasn't finished. With a calm and deliberate voice, he turned to Lisa. "Oh, don't worry, Lisa. You're in the next part." The screen lit up again. This time, it was Lisa's desperate, pathetic messages to Mark. "Lisa, I know you still think about me. We were meant to be. Lisa, leave her. Come to me. I'll make it worth your while. Lisa, don't marry her. You'll regret it." And then, the final, most damning clip. Lisa's tear-choked voice in a recorded call. "She doesn't deserve you. I should be the one in that dress. If you don't leave her, I'll make sure she never has a happy marriage. I'll ruin her." Silence fell, thick and suffocating. Lisa's fiancé, who had been sitting quietly, absorbing every piece of evidence, now stood up. He didn't say a single word. He didn't cause a scene. He simply turned and walked out, leaving Lisa frozen in place, her mouth slightly open in shock. Sandra tried to recover, tried to speak, but my father was already rising to his feet. His voice rang out, firm and commanding. "Get out." Sandra hesitated for the first time in her life, glancing around as if searching for an ally. But there were none. The weight of her disgrace was unbearable. And just like that, she and Lisa were escorted out of my wedding, humiliated and exposed. But the nightmare wasn't over. The next morning, I woke up to chaos. My phone buzzed with an endless stream of notifications. While I had been celebrating the first night of my marriage, Sandra had taken to social media in a desperate attempt to control the narrative. Her Facebook post was nothing short of a melodramatic mess. "I can't believe my own family betrayed me after everything I've done for them. My niece is a manipulative, backstabbing snake who stole my daughter's future. That wedding was a sham. Mark doesn't love her, he's being tricked. Everyone knows Lisa was his true love. Money and lies won in the end. They humiliated us, but karma is coming for them." If she expected sympathy, she received the opposite. The comments section was brutal. "You tried to ruin your own niece's wedding. You're an embarrassment, Sandra. Maybe if you raised your daughter to be a decent person instead of an entitled brat, this wouldn't have happened. Karma. You just got served a 5-course meal of it." Even my mother joined in, her words sharp as a dagger. "Everything you've done in the dark has come to light. You did this to yourself." Lisa, in an attempt to salvage her image, posted a lengthy, pitiful message, pretending to be the victim. "Lisa, I had no idea what my mom was doing. I would never do something like that. This was all a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. The woman who begged my husband to leave me, who sent desperate messages trying to sabotage my marriage, now wanted to play innocent. Her ex-fiancé wasn't buying it either. His final comment before blocking her was simple and devastating. I hope lying was worth losing everything." And that was just the beginning. Lisa not only lost her fiancé, but his parents, who had paid for the wedding venue, the dress, the catering, demanded their money back. Lisa had no way to pay them. She turned to Sandra, only to discover that her mother was now completely broke. The same day Sandra posted her Facebook meltdown, she lost her job. Her boss's wife had attended my wedding and had witnessed everything. When she told her husband, he dug deeper into Sandra's history. It turned out she had a long record of bullying younger female employees, complaints that had been buried for years. She was fired on the spot. No severance. No sympathy. Nothing. Lisa spiraled. Her fiancé was gone, her wedding was cancelled, her mother was unemployed, and worst of all, her so-called friends abandoned her. The same girls who had once worshipped her now wanted nothing to do with her. Why? Because Lisa had borrowed money from multiple people, promising to pay them back after the wedding. Now, with no wedding, no wealthy husband, and no future, she was completely screwed. And just when I thought they would finally disappear, Lisa showed up at my house, sobbing, desperate. Then came the real insanity. An envelope appeared on my doorstep. Lisa was suing me for emotional distress, defamation, and public humiliation. I laughed so hard I nearly choked. The woman who exposed herself in front of hundreds of people was now trying to play the victim. But she had no idea, she was about to lose everything.